All right, today we have a cool story of David and Goliath. David and Goliath. We'll read the story, and then actually there's also a little video today if you want to watch it. David and Goliath. Long ago, there was a young boy called David who had 7 older brothers. David's brothers were big and strong. So here's David. Here's all his brothers. They're bigger than him. They're older than him. They're stronger than him. They had work to do, and they didn't have much time for their little brother. David sometimes felt small and unimportant. I wish I was big and strong too, he sighed. Then I could help. One day, David's father gave him the job of his own. I need a shepherd to take care of my sheep, he told him. You must lead them to food and water. You must scare away wild animals with this sling and these stones. And you must count all the sheep every day to make sure they are safe. So he's got some jobs. He's got to take care of the sheep, get them food, water, scare away wild animals, and count them every day. David was very excited to be given such an important job, and he told God all about it. So when he's telling God about it, he's just talking to God like you would talk to anybody. It will be hard work, he told God, but I know that you will always be there to help me. And God is always there to help us, right? With anything. David spoke to God every day, asking questions and learning from him. Of course, it was very quiet up in the hills with just the sheep for company. Sometimes David didn't see another person all day, but whenever he felt lonely, David got out his harp, which is an instrument, and made up songs to remind himself that God was near. He kept busy too, doing target practice with his sling. So he's got this little slingshot thing. You put a rock in there and then you throw it and then it hits. Soon he never missed a target. Ping! Look, ping! With just one stone, David could scare away even the fiercest lions and wolves. He's scaring the wolves away because what do the wolves want to do? Probably eat the sheep, right? And his job is to scare the wild animals away. While David was learning to be a good shepherd, his 3 biggest brothers had joined the Israelite army led by King Saul. The Israelite army was away fighting the army of the Philistines, but they weren't doing very well. The Philistine army had a secret weapon, a giant soldier called Goliath. So there was the Israelites, which are God's people, and then the enemy, the Philistines, and they had a giant man as their secret weapon. Goliath was much taller than the other men. He carried the longest spear the Israelites had ever seen. He was as strong as a bear, as fierce as a wolf, and as brave as a lion. One morning, David's father sent him to take food to his brothers. And what a surprise when he arrived. Goliath was standing in the middle of the battlefield, shaking his spear at the Israelites. "Listen," he roared, "send your best soldier to fight me. If he wins, we will be your slaves. If I win, you will be our slaves." David's big brothers hid behind their shields and began to tremble. "Who is brave enough to fight that giant?" they cried. So they're all scared. David stepped forward. "I will fight him," he said bravely. His brothers stared at him in disbelief. "You?" they laughed. "How can a little boy like you fight a giant?" "I may be little," replied David, "but with God's help, I can do big things." Try as they might, the brothers could not change David's mind, so they took him to go see King Saul. King Saul couldn't believe his ears when he heard what David wanted to do. "You're just a shepherd boy," he exclaimed. "Goliath will cut you up into little pieces." David smiled. "God helped me protect my sheep, and he will help me fight Goliath too. Please let me try." At last, the king agreed. "Wear my armor to protect yourself," he offered. But David shook his head. "It's much too big for me. God will be my armor. So your armor is what protects you. So he's saying, I don't need your shield. I don't need your helmet to protect me. God is going to protect me. Thud, 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 thud. The ground shook as Goliath stepped forward to fight. Where is your champion? He roared, shaking his fist. Here I am, yelled David, shouting up at the giant. Ho, 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 ha, 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 ha. Goliath guffawed with laughter. That's a good joke. They've sent a boy to fight me. Ha, ha, ha. So he's laughing at David. The Israelites began to shake and shiver with fear. This was a horrible idea. Why did they ever think that David could fight Goliath? But David was not afraid. Goliath is right, he cried. I am just a boy, but I have God with me. He helped me fight wild bears and lions, and God will help me fight Goliath too. All of a sudden, David didn't seem so funny anymore. Goliath shook his fist and gave an almighty roar. Israelites, prepare to be our slaves. Very quietly, David took a smooth stone from his pouch. Very calmly, he loaded it into his sling. Very carefully, David took aim and he spun the sling around his head. Ping! Before Goliath had even raised his spear, the stone flew out of the sling and struck him, thump, right in the middle of his forehead. Crash! Goliath fell to the ground in a heap of armor. David had won the battle. For a moment, there was silence. Then a huge cheer went up. Yay for David! David's brothers cheered. The other Israelite soldiers cheered. Even King Saul cheered. They all cried, hooray, hooray for David the giant slayer. After the battle, King Saul took David back to his palace and everyone cheered for David. That was the very first battle that David won, but it wasn't the last. He grew up to be a great soldier and even became king of Israel when Saul died. But no matter how important David became, he never forgot the lesson he had learned, that with God's help, even the smallest person can do great things. There he is. All right, so I'm gonna just color a little bit today with you. So let's see. I'm gonna make, first I'm gonna work on David. There he's got his sling. And while we were at school, the kids and I were talking a little bit about when David said that he was talking to God. The kids said, but God's not a person. How can you talk to God? Well, God, we know that God listens to our prayers. And I also was telling the children that God is everywhere. So if you're at your house, God's with you. If you're at school, God's with you. If you're in the car, God is with you. If you're hiding, God is with you. God's everywhere. And the other cool thing about God is that God can be with you, but God can also be with other people at the same time. And he can hear everybody that's talking to him, and he can hear everybody's prayers. So if you're ever scared or feeling alone or sad or worried or even happy, tell God about it. I feel like if it would make you feel better, and God likes to know what you're doing and how you're feeling. So, God likes when we talk to him. He likes when we talk to him with our prayers. And God also likes when we talk to him just when we tell him. Like David was telling God about his new job, right? His job was to scare away the wild animals and take care of the sheep. And David told God all about it. God likes that. So God likes when you talk to him also. So he's got his armor on. He's got his helmet on. But David didn't need any of that armor. He had God as his protection, right? Let's see. So I'm just going to color a little bit today with you. I'm going to be done, but then I'm going to also link the video for the cartoon of this story. It's a good one.